Justin, it's been a little over 24 hours since that game, and I'm still struggling to come down. Just what a moment.
Yeah, it was an astonishing event, wasn't it? And I'm glad we witnessed it. I'm glad we digested it. Yeah, a phenomenal moment in football history, actually. That's going to be cited for years, especially amongst us Championship aficionados. Just almost still coming down from it, even over a day. It's incredible. We won't see something like that again. We probably will, because it's the bloody Championship.
Yeah, and moments like that do happen in the Championship, but they're so very rare. And when they do happen, we've just got to really savour it. You won't be surprised to hear I'm absolutely knackered. I could not get any sleep on Tuesday night. Just the adrenaline in my veins meant I had no chance of nodding off earlier than I wanted to. And it didn't help that I kept looking at my phone to see all the different videos on social media.
So
the Sunderland club commentary being a particular highlight in that regard. Essentially, screaming down the microphone was just so good.
So much good content. I do implore anyone who's listening now to just go and watch it, digest it again, because that just makes you relive an incredible moment and through the passions of other people.
Oh yeah.
The club commentary, the radio commentary as well. It's just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely top tier content, which we don't usually see on social media nowadays for other reasons, but it's something that is just got to be savoured, because what an amazing moment. And look, the plan for us today was to look back on some of the news that we haven't spoken about from the past week in the Championship while we've been focused on the playoffs, which we will do at some point in the show. But it feels like it would be remiss of us not to just bask in the moment of a breathtaking round of playoff semi-final action, Justin. Not just that damn Ballard moment, but I think the semi-finals as a whole have been really, really entertaining this year.
Yeah, they have. I know people will say, oh, the Sheffield United Bristol City game was a dead rubber, but it wasn't. We still have so much controversy. Obviously, that Rob Dickey red card, a really poignant moment where Bramwell Lane sort of turns around in unison singing about George Baldock. Just some really, really good moments from that tie alone.
And the biggest aggregate win in playoff history, Justin. Come on now.
Exactly. And a lot of goals, hell of a lot of goals, and really, really astute display from Sheffield United. And then you've got Sunderland. Not much needs to be said.
Absolutely right. Yeah, two incredibly memorable semi-finals for very different reasons. But keep in mind as well, we had two of the dullest games I've ever seen last season in the first legs of the semi-finals. Do you remember them? Justin, both of them were goalless, two absolutely appalling games. And then in the second leg, we just saw the two favourites win. It feels like we've more than made up for those two games with the drama we got here in these two sets of semi-finals. So really, really good stuff. And there are a few things that I wanted to go back on, which we didn't necessarily talk about in yesterday's or Tuesday night's reaction episode. One of those things is I wanted to retract something from that reaction pod, which was Dan Ballard's header, because we said the header at the time seemed to come off his back/shoulder because it looked weird, didn't it? It didn't look like your classic header. But we've got to say we have done him a massive, massive disservice. It might be the greatest header of all time, Justin, because he's leapt for it and had to essentially snap his spine in half to adjust his body and get his head down to connect with it. It's an astonishing bit of improvisation when you see the replays and it in slow motion.
His head's almost between his own legs at the time he makes contact with the ball.
Yeah.
Physics don't add up here. It just makes no sense. But, to get that contact, to get into the top corner in that moment, it's an incredible bit of improvisation from an unorthodox header, you'd say. I did see this post from Daniel Graham Parker on Twitter saying he's jumped over the ball and headed it by his shins.
Yeah,
because he's fucking God among men. He's Jesus Christ reborn. He is Dan Ballard, and he wins headers. And I think that summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, I'd really love to know if Dan Ballard can bend down like that usually, because having to be able to have your head that low while your legs are so high is just ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. But also to connect with the header as well as he did while doing all that was just balmy. Another thing we didn't really mention in the excitement of Tuesday night, Justin, was that it is a Sheffield United v Sunderland final. We mentioned that Sunderland will be going to the final, but a lot has been made about how good Sheffield United have been in the other semi-final. What do you think they would have been thinking while watching that game unfold on Tuesday night, Justin?
I think they'll be thinking, this team will give us a game. They're stubborn, they're awkward. They clearly take their moments because on the balance of the two legs that we saw against Coventry, they weren't prolific creators of chances. So I think they'll come away from it with that mindset. It's going to be an awkward game for them because they're going to defend for their lives. I mean, just look at Dan Ballard. I know he's going to get the plaudits for his goal, but just defensively, it was a masterclass, wasn't it? It was fantastic. Luke Unai was brilliant. Other than them switching off for the Coventry goal, I actually thought the entire back five were fantastic across the two legs. You are going to concede chances. It's the Championship. No one's that good. But the way they dealt with a lot of the situations, they dealt with really, really well. I think if they can be a little bit more interesting going forwards and commit a little bit more with a little bit more control, then I think Sheffield United will look at this and go, well, this is a difficult one. Look at Mienda, for example. He's a spark, isn't he? Lafay's got this quality. They'll be looking at that. I wouldn't say nervous because they'll be confident because they just put a team away by six goals across two legs. They'll be certainly looking at it going, this team will give us a game.
Well, in a way, I am happy that it's these two in the final because we've had a top four all season. It feels right that two of those sides in that top four are competing in the final for promotion, and it promises to be a really, really intriguing game. I've seen some suggestions online that while it is a great moment for Sunderland, over the two legs, them and Coventry haven't looked like two sides at the same level as Sheffield United. To that, I would say underestimate Sunderland at your peril. It's a one-off game. It's the playoff. All those cliches, Justin, and we'll obviously be talking about it a lot over the next week and a bit, but Sunderland can definitely beat Sheffield United, can't they? Yes, Sheffield United finished miles ahead of Sunderland in the regular season and also looked frightening in the two legs of the semi-finals, but Sunderland can definitely do a job on them, can't they?
Yeah, I certainly think it's possible. I know you just said it's a cliche, but it is a one-off game. Anything can truly, truly happen. I mean, I wouldn't have foreseen Southampton beating Leeds last year. I would have been very convinced in Leeds taking the win against Southampton because of how Southampton ended the season. And then you look at Sunderland in a similar set of circumstances where they ended the season very, very poorly, get over the line just about in the playoff semi-final. And I think as well, they've got this relentless naivety amongst their group that I think really does work in their favour. You look at them getting the corner that led to their goal. It didn't have to go to that end of the pitch. They could have consolidated, saw the final moments out of the game out, but it worked in their favour. And I think that's down to that relentless naivety that can be played as a positive. Of course, it can be played as a negative, but ultimately, I think when you've got that endeavour amongst your team, they can beat anyone on their day. And they've shown that this season. Sunderland have. They have shown it already.
Yeah, they gave Sheffield United a right good game earlier in the season at Bramall Lane, didn't they? So, we've seen them go toe-to-toe with them previously. Why can't they do it in the final? So, we'll have plenty of build-up to that game in the next week and a bit, ladies and gents. Don't you worry. One final thing to mention is we did speak on Tuesday night about how heartbreaking it is for Coventry, Justin, because it is absolutely heartbreaking, conceding a winner in the 122nd minute of a game. That goes without saying. But keep in mind as well, Coventry lost in the FA Cup semi-final to Man United last season on penalties in controversial circumstances. They lost in the playoff final the season before last in a penalty shootout. And now they've had this, conceding a 122nd minute winner in the playoff semis. Coventry fans have really been through the ringer over the past 2 years, haven't they?
Football's brutal. It's brutal, isn't it? It's unforgiving. It will chew you up and spit you out. Won't even digest you. Won't even give you this sweet release of, that. I don't know where I'm going with that. You get the point, though. It's a painful experience, but as I say, it's football. I think every set of fans across the country can tell you that they've had those moments. It's just how often does it happen? 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and considering this is Coventry we're talking about as well, who have had such a rough time in the years prior to the 2 years, which we've been talking about here, yeah, it really can be a horrible game, football, can't it? But it's just the fact that they've come so close on so many occasions to something wonderful, getting to the playoff final, getting to the FA Cup semi-final. And in the FA Cup semi-final, they thought they'd scored, didn't they? But it was Haji Wright's big toe, which ended up costing them. And now this here, it's horrible, isn't it? But hopefully Coventry will learn from this, will take this as encouragement for them going forwards, and eventually will have something to celebrate, because Lord knows they've deserved it after the past 2 years that they've had. But yeah, as we say, there'll be a lot of content coming for the playoff final over the next week and a bit, ladies and gents. Plenty of Sunderland chat, plenty of Sheffield United chat, so make sure you stay tuned to the second tier airwaves as we go through all of that. But let's talk about some news from the past week and a bit, really, in the Championship. There's been plenty going on while we've been so fixated on the playoffs, Justin. And the latest news that's come down into our inbox regards Watford, because they've announced their new manager following the sacking of Tom Cleverley. It's Uruguayan coach Paulo Pezzolano. He's agreed a 1-year deal with an extra year's option. He was mainly managing in South America up until 2023, when he was appointed at Real Valladolid. He got them promoted from the Spanish second tier the season before the one just gone, but was sacked last December with Valladolid bottom of La Liga with 10 losses from 15. Now, look, I don't know whether this guy's going to be a good manager or not, Justin. Quite hard to tell when it looks like he's had a pretty mixed spell over in Spain. But the question I would pose it as is like this. Is he so obviously a good manager that it justifies sacking such a talented and much loved coach in Tom Cleverley at Watford? For me, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, it's a question that only Gino Pozzo, the Watford owner, can answer, isn't it? Because I think firstly, from what I've read about Paulo Pezzolano, I do like what I've read. He's managed some big clubs across the continents, in Pachuca in Mexico, Penarol in Uruguay. So he's been trusted with some big clubs. He favours possession, which is in fact a big tick in the Gino Pozzo box. The club described him as a promotion specialist, but I think it really is a different kettle of fish when you're doing it in different countries with different circumstances and completely different resources that the Championship does actually possess. Because Watford are in a situation where they've got to compete with more clubs that are benefiting from parachute payments, which is difficult. So Paulo Pezzolano's got to be a really, really good promotion specialist. So you're absolutely right to question whether or not it was right to sack, or whether it's worth sacking a highly rated manager or young manager in Tom Cleverley and replacing him with Paulo Pezzolano, who you've only given a 1-year deal to, by the way. So really, how much faith have you got in him to deliver your objectives?
Yeah, Watford may be looking ahead to the future for once with that decision. But yeah, Watford's circumstances with the lack of resources and the actual quality of the squad, we've spoken about loads. We don't rate that very highly. But the way I look at it is, this guy might turn out to be a great coach, and fair play to him if he is. This is by no means a criticism of him, what we're saying here, because he's completely innocent in this whole scenario. But it just makes the decision by the owners to sack Tom Cleverley even more outrageous. If they were getting in someone who was obviously an upgrade on Cleverley, then that would go some way towards me, and I imagine a lot of Watford fans, accepting the decision. But instead, they've gotten a guy with no experience of the Championship, no experience of English football. Hell, up until a couple of years ago, he hadn't even managed in Europe. So I still don't see the justification in sacking Cleverley. And it feels like Watford had a chance to get out of the cycle that they've been in for, over a decade now, where they sack a manager, get in a complete unknown from abroad, sack him, get an experienced English manager who knows the league, sack him, etc. Now they're back in it, and look at what direction they're going in, Justin. It's not working.
Well, yeah, exactly. It isn't. It isn't. I think that the way I would look at it is they've taken a risk by bringing in Pezzolano, because he's not going to guarantee success. No manager would guarantee success. But for me, unless there is money to spend on that squad, the whole process is pointless. There's no point getting a new coach in who plays a different style of play to Tom Cleverley and not giving him the resource and player to play a style of play that they can't currently play. The current squad can't currently play. That's really important. Tom Cleverley was sort of game by game managing things. It wasn't a style of play that we saw. And I think with what we've seen in the past with Watford is you can be a very, very average coach and still have success with this Watford team, because this Watford team has typically been too good at times for this level. Isco Munoz springs to mind. Did you look at his Sheffield Wednesday spell last year? It was a disaster. It was awful. But he delivered promotion for Watford at a canter. So that goes to show that you can be an average coach with a good team and still deliver success. This is not a good team. It's a very average, if not below average squad in the Championship. Tom Cleverley overachieved with it. Can Petzolano do that? I don't know. But what is the main issue here is the squad needs better players. That's the main thing.
Yeah. But we'll talk more about Watford in the lead up to the new season. But obviously, we've got a long summer ahead for them to try and show us that they still want to have a right good go at playoffs, because that's the reason that they sacked Tom Cleverley, wasn't it? So if they believe that they can achieve the playoffs once again, it'll be very interesting to see what they do over the coming months. We'll have a quick break, Justin, but just before that, may I bring you and the listeners' attention to the latest video on the Second Tier YouTube channel. It's called Will Wrexham Go From Non-League to the Premier League? This is, of course, because we'll be joined by Ryan Reynolds and co next season in the Championship. We'll talk more about them over the summer, of course. But I've got to say, Justin, before the video, I hadn't really taken a proper moment to fully analyse their squad. I knew they had some big names in there, but after having a proper look and a deep dive into who they have got, considering this is one of the most expensive squads we've seen come up from League One, I think it needs a hell of a lot of work doing to it, especially if they're talking about potentially going for promotion again next season. Yeah,
that I can say now that I don't think that will happen, mainly because I look at the players that they've got out of contract now. They've only got 3 players out of contract, which blew my mind. I was expecting a lot more than that. So your James McLean's, your Ollie Palmer's, your George Evans, your Jack Marriott's, their contracts expire next year. Next year. That's a frightening scenario. As a club will have to work just as hard as moving players on as he will at bring them in. So I think many people have got caught up in the Wrexham wave because the narrative has been, will they do the Championship now? Will they get promoted from the Championship? That's a very difficult thing to do. Championship's a big step up from League One, as we know. It's even harder when your business model has been to throw long contracts by the way of ageing players.
Yeah. Well, I discuss that an awful lot in the video, so I implore everyone to go watch that now on the Second Tier YouTube channel. And had a lot of views and a lot of subscribers recently on the Second Tier YouTube channel. It's really been picking up a lot, so thank you a lot to anyone who's supporting with us in that regard. But if you've not got involved yet, then please make sure you do. Second Tier Podcast on YouTube. Justin, we'll take a quick break, shall we? After that, we'll talk about some more Championship news from the past few days, including the ongoing uncertainty over the future of Ruben Sellers at Hull City and CJ Egan-Riley leaving Burnley. Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast. We're having a news catch-up of everything going on across the Champo from the past couple of weeks, really. And we've just been talking about what's going on at Watford with Tom Cleverley's unjust sacking, Justin. Well, speaking of unjustified sackings, there's a lot of uncertainty over the future of Ruben Sellers at Hull City. There's been several reports over the past week and a bit that he's fighting to keep his job. The Hull Daily Mail say a decision is expected to be made in the coming days. But I just look at this, Justin. This would be a ridiculous sacking, wouldn't it? Surely Hull City can't make 2 bad sackings in 12 months.
To slightly change a Mick McCarthy quote that will probably do the round, they can. Yeah, look, it feels like all the reports surfaced very quickly after the final day of the season and then dropped off again. I know that the whole Daily Mail suggested that there are doubts within the hierarchy that Ruben Sellers is the man to deliver success. But when you consider the fact that they appointed Shutter of Valadze, who was a disaster, sacked Liam Rossignol, which was a disaster, then appointed Tim Volter, which is a disaster, I'm sensing a theme of really bad decision-making at the very top of the club. So I think I said as well shortly after the season finished that I think the main thing that Hull need is stability, but also whether or not they're in League One or the Championship, Ruben Sellers is the man to deliver what comes next for them. Now, what comes next, in my opinion, is just consolidation, because they've not had it. They've had volatility. They need consolidation. I think Ruben Sellers is the guy who can deliver that. So sacking him, I think, would be a pretty daft decision.
I think that's underplaying it a little bit. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Ooh. Justin, that saying feels very apt with Hull City, because the fact they're even said to be considering sacking Ruben Sellers is very worrying. And while I don't think him getting sacked would be as bad as Rosinia getting sacked was this time last year, it would still be so daft. You've got to consider the circumstances he's had to deal with coming in at Hull when they were bottom at the table. The club was really in a state of flux, had a lot of injuries to deal with as well, and he's kept them up. In the time he was there, they picked up the 14th most points in the division, and incredibly, I didn't even realise this until I was looking earlier, only the top three have conceded fewer goals than them in that time, which is some going, isn't it? Now, yes, they did nearly go down on the final day. Yes, they struggled for goals, and yes, the results at home haven't been great. But with the context of the situation, Sellers has done a really good job. Not every Hull fan will agree with me on that, and that's absolutely fine. But sacking him after what he's done this season would be a mental decision.
Yeah, you don't appoint a new manager, sign new players and expect success. That's arrogance and naivety. I think this season was a reality check for those at the top of Hull City. And I'm just bemused as to why that reality check hasn't sunk in yet. And those stats that you pointed out there, I know that Hull were the lowest scorers, but I think Ruben Sellers did exactly the thing you need to do when you come into a relegation threatened team, is you stop them conceding stupid goals. And I think the other context you've got to throw into it is the squad's not good enough. It just wasn't good enough for the first 6 months of the season, and it was just about there for the second half of the season. So there's so many things at play here, and I think the question for Hull fans is, do you trust your board to get the next appointment right, having been an absolute car accident of decision making since Akin Akali came in? Do you trust them to do it? Because I don't. Because the history shows you it's not been good enough.
I'll be very surprised if there are a load of Hull fans saying, yeah, we do trust the board, actually. And I think they have made some changes behind the scenes, which may inform some better decision making. But if they're thinking of sacking Ruben Sellers, then I don't think that's necessarily a good start. So, yeah, very, very strange times, but we'll wait and see how that develops in the coming days. Transfer news now, and Burnley defender CJ Egan-Riley is reportedly set to leave the club. TalkSport say he's agreed a 5-year deal with Strasbourg in France. He's out of contract this summer and is fresh off the back of a campaign which saw him included in the prestigious second-tier team of the season, of course. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into this, Justin, but one of your star players from your promotion-winning side deciding to leave less than 2 weeks after the season has ended, I wouldn't say that's exactly promising for Burnley. No,
it isn't. You're right. I think, when you're losing your centre half, so soon after the season finishing, a really good season where you've set defensive records, it's a bit of a shock to the system, because I think for the most part you want your core group of that of those players to stay together going into the Premier League. The other question is, would you think CJ Egan-Riley is capable of stepping up to the Premier League off the back of one good season? I think he still needs to go through a bit more development. But look, it's hard to know what his motivations are, but the circumstances at Strasbourg are very good. Going to be playing European football, manages Liam Rosinia. He's talented and he's going to develop you. 5-year deal is a blow for Burnley, but CJ Egan-Riley is going to play on the continent. That's not too bad.
I believe they're owned by Chelsea as well, or at least have that same ownership group as Chelsea, which may have played into his thinking in some shape or form as well. But from my perspective, looking at it from purely a Burnley prism, I'm just trying to picture how any conversation with Egan-Riley has gone to try and convince him to stay, because with all due respect for Ligue 1, I know Strasbourg are flying high there and everything we've mentioned already with Chelsea and Liam Rosinia and what have you. But still, even the bottom end of the Premier League should be more appealing than what Strasbourg have to offer. So when someone like him is opting to move on, I think that says a lot about how he regards Burnley's survival chances. And considering you've got James Trafford, Maxime Esteve, Josh Brownhill, amongst others, who have all been linked with moves away, yeah, it's hard to feel too optimistic with Burnley's chances next season, Justin. And as I say, it's less than 2 weeks since the season ended.
Well, I still think they need to upgrade, as I was alluding to, on TJ Egan-Riley anyway, because I think you need that experience going up to the top flight. But I think when you're losing a player who's clearly talented, it's a disappointment losing for free as well. He's an even bigger disappointment when they probably could have picked up a decent fee for him. I think, if you're speaking purely economic terms. So, yeah, it's a blow. As I say, I think Burnley would have needed to upgrade that position anyway. But look, I think Egan-Riley's, I would argue, he's chosen rightly. I know you might disagree on that, but I think, as I say, playing under Liam Rosenior for a team like Strasbourg, who are clearly developing, I think is a positive move.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all, Justin. I don't think it's a bad move for Egan-Riley. I think it says more about Burnley and the direction they're heading in. Obviously, they're heading up at the moment. But if you've got players jumping ship already, it's not a good look, is what I would say. So, yeah, it's a concerning one, is the way I would put it. Now, it's that time of year when clubs start revealing who's been released from their roster, essentially. And we've had a few announced so far in the Championship. We'll begin with Preston, who have some big names leaving. Emil Rees, Freddie Woodman, Ryan Ledson, and also Kian Best, who took to Instagram to say that he found out this news through social media. Which, if true, is pretty poor form from Preston, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, it's not good, and I think it speaks of a wider, I wouldn't say discontent, but certainly disorganisation behind the scenes. You know, Peter Ridsdale was very sort of vocal and open in their strategy this summer. And then, it does maybe raise a few questions, but I think when you're not communicating the fact that your player is being released to the player.
He's only 19 as well.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. But look, I think Kian Best is... I've seen glimpses of him and I've been impressed, but it's not to say he's got it in the bag. So I think, it's interesting that Preston are opting to lose him on a free and not tell him about it, which is, it's just disappointing. It's not good for, I think, any club doing that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I've seen some Preston fans not necessarily defending the club, but saying there have been rumours about Best's attitude and things like whether this story is actually true, that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
whichever way you look at it, it's not a good look for the club. Look, Justin, Emil Rees, Freddie Woodman, Ryan Ledson. I know we've said on plenty of occasions that Preston don't have many standout players. There's a distinct scent of mid-table energy about much of this Preston squad, but these are some of their more notable players, aren't they? So some big players leaving, and that doesn't give me extra encouragement for them heading into the summer next season, considering especially after how disastrously last season ended. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Emil Rees, for example, Ridsdale said he wasn't apparently never interested in signing a contract, which was very intriguing to find out. And it makes you think why the club didn't sell when they had an opportunity to do so, if an opportunity came up, because he got 12 goals last season. We saw the breadth of strikers in the Championship not doing particularly well. So 12 goals is a pretty decent return. He's certainly more convincing, I think, in my opinion, than Middleton as my age. So, why the club didn't move heaven and earth to at least try and cash in on him, I don't know. But again, it's just the strategy at Preston's bizarre. The amount of players they've lost on free transfers that they could have sold at peak value has been ridiculous. Ben Davis, Ben Pearson. Emil Rees is just another example. Freddie Woodman potentially as well. Although I saw that he was linked with the move to Man United as one of the third choice options, which again is interesting. That the fact that Freddie Woodman would rather be a third choice at Old Trafford than a starter at Deepdale. This club's got a lot of surgery to do. Yeah.
Well, in my experience, it's never a good start to the summer losing your number one striker and losing your number one keeper as well. You know what I mean? That's never very good. So, yeah, a very concerning start for the summer for Preston, and considering how bang average their recruitment has been in recent years, yeah. Concerning. Plenty of big names are leaving Luton Town after their relegation from the Championship as well. Amari Bell, Tim Krul, Victor Moses, and perhaps most notably, Pelly Ruddokampanzu, Justin, after 11 and a half years at the club, initially joining them in the National League, going all the way to the Premier League. He's finally departing Kenilworth Road. Justin, it feels like the end of an era, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it probably feels like that at the club anyway. Amara Bell's played such a huge role as well in the club getting to the Premier League. And Ruddokampanzu, a player that in their Championship promotion season was absolutely fantastic. And he just epitomises what Luton were for such a long time. And I think they lost their way last year. Notably, he didn't play many games, which I think was interesting. Whether or not he's good enough is another question. But yeah, end of an era. Sad that he's departing, but he's a legend at that football club. 11 and a half years at one football club, Ryan, is, in modern football, just truly, truly astonishing. Even madder, the fact that they've gone from non-league to the top flight.
Yeah. He's the first player to do that, isn't he, with the same club? And it's something that I'll be surprised if we see happen again, although Wrexham may say something different about that, but we'll wait and see, I suppose. But yeah, it feels a bit symbolic, really, to Luton's end of an era, really, because when you look at the squad they've got now, how many of those players were with them on the journey from non-league to the Premier League? You know, I know Mpanzu's the only one who was there from the very start, but you look at the guys who were there even when they were in League One, League Two, like Sonny Bradley's first one who comes to mind, those kind of guys. There aren't many left now, if any, after Mpanzu's gone. So it is quite sad in a way, and maybe that's part of the reason why Luton have had such a terrible season, because they've lost those, dressing room leaders. I don't know, but yeah, it's sad that he's gone. And you look at the other guys who are going. I mean, Victor Moses has been completely frozen out of the squad now for several months. Tim Krul was just a second choice. I think Amari Bell's an interesting one though, Justin, because up until 12 months ago, I would have said he was the underrated man in this Luton team, and well, he's had a disappointing season because everyone at Luton's had a disappointing season, but I think he could definitely still do a job at the Championship. I'd take him at Derby, put it that way.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if a certain Nathan Jones comes calling, if I'm going to be honest with you, at Charlton. But yeah, Amari Bell, again, just a really good functional play. He obviously played at left wing back, left back, and obviously had that left, mostly I think on that left side of that back three, which is so effective. So when you've got a player who can do that and step in and do a job is really, really impressive.
Yeah, John Eustace, get on the buzzer, please. And finally, Middlesbrough. They have announced that they plan to change the club crest from next season. It's after a survey found the majority of supporters would support a change in design to coincide with the club's 150th anniversary next year. The current badge has been in place since 2007. Everyone seems to be changing their badge now.
Yeah.
Don't they? Very fashionable thing to do all of a sudden, Justin. But what do you think of this?
I'm all for it. Commemorates 150 years, which is incredible. I did see that 57% were in favour of the change. I think the other side of it is, it's interesting to know who generally really cares.
I care, hence why I've included it in the running order.
Well, no, I think, for example, Derby's badge changed to a ram one year. When did that happen? I couldn't tell you when.
I think Derby's badge is quite nice, though. I think Middlesbrough's badge, nice. in fairness, is a bit naff. Do you know what I mean?
I quite like it. As long as they don't do a Leeds, we're all good, aren't we? the old clip art, whatever it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's what Newcastle will be going for, because they're looking for a new badge, aren't they? I don't know, but yeah, it's. I always forget that what Middlesbrough's badge was like before. Do you remember what Middlesbrough's badge was before 2007?
This is a Mandela effect thing. I cannot remember it.
It's a very similar badge, but it was circular. If you Google it, you'll look at it and go, oh yeah, I remember exactly what that looks like. Everyone have a Google, have a look what you see. And everyone will agree with me when they say the first thing they think of when they see that badge is Gareth Southgate, because that's instantly what I think of anyway. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it looks like. as I say, I think the Middlesbrough badge does look a bit dated nowadays. It's probably one of my least favourite badges in the Championship. What's your favourite badge, Justin? Go on then.
What's my favourite badge?
Yeah.
And you've put me on the spot here because I'm now trying to think of badges.
I think the Derby badge is nice.
The Derby badge is very simple, and I like, simple's really, really good. I'm trying to think.
Swansea?
Is that just a swan?
It's cool though. I think it's a nice modern day stylish badge.
I tell you what, Bristol City's when they changed theirs,
that's
very
nice
sleek,
badge.
very good. I did like that. I think I like the ones that aren't complicated. Norwich's are good. Always a big fan of Blackburn's as well because it got Latin on it.
I like Hull's because it's got a tiger on it.
We're just naming animals now, aren't we? West Brom's could do with a change.
Maybe. I'm just going through badges now. I've literally got a list up in front of me and just
Oxford's. It's just a bull,
which is so right. This has always annoyed me. Right, Oxford. What's your nickname? The U's. Call yourself the Oxers, lads. You've missed a golden opportunity here, for God's sake. It's on the bloody badge and you call yourself the U's. It's an absolute tapping. It's brain dead, really. What was the badge I was just about to mention then? Oh, Portsmouth. I've always liked Portsmouth's badge. I know it's had a bit of an update in recent years. In fact, I'm wearing a Portsmouth shirt today, Justin. Do you like this? Look at this. It's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit tight, but yeah, it looks good.
A bit tight. How bloody dare you? I've been eating a lot of pizza recently. Leave me alone. It's the summer. What do you expect? But yeah, that's been our badge chat covered for a year anyway.
We never spoke about badges. It's been great.
No, why haven't we spoken about badges before? Let us know. Let us know whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to this on the podcast. Email in, comment below with what is your favourite badge in the Championship. What do you think is the best badge in the Championship or English football as a whole? I'm genuinely very interested in this. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been the Second Tier podcast, and this has been kind of a news roundup of everything going on across the Championship, plus kind of a playoff debrief after what was a dramatic few days in the Championship. But now, Justin, we are in full playoff final mode. We are fully fixated on what is coming up in a week on Saturday. And it's going to be very, very exciting. Our next episode after this is going to be on Saturday, where we'll be talking to a Sheffield United fan about the final itself. Then on Monday, we'll be talking to a Sunderland fan about the final itself. The Wednesday, we'll have a special episode coming up, so keep tuned for that. Won't say any more on that so far. And then on Friday, it's going to be our playoff preview, where Justin and I make some blooming predictions ahead of the big game itself. And then Justin and I, the next episode after that, will be me and you reacting to the final at Wembley. So you've got an episode coming up every 2 days from now, ladies and gents. Look at you guys being spoilt by your pals at the Second Tier podcast. But this has been the Second Tier podcast. Make sure you stay tuned for everything coming up over the next few days. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.